Hello again there. Welcome to lesson 2. For this lesson, let's look at some VA statistics and talk a little more about the opportunity with VA loans. So in 2019, there were 18,767 VA loans completed in Ohio for a total loan volume of $3.3 million. Average loan amount was $177,000. Actually 3.3 billion, sorry. And 13,132 of those were purchases. Average loan amount on that was $195,068. The really interesting thing about that is think about us here in Ohio, that the average loan amounts for 2019 typically are between like 125 and 150 in most markets. So as you can see, that 177 and 195, that's a much higher number and much better opportunity than with the VA loan. Now, here are 3 mandatory questions you need to ask whenever you're working with a veteran. The first question is, are you or your spouse a veteran? The reason I want to ask that is you never want to assume that the veteran is, or that the person you're talking to is the veteran, because there are a lot of women serving in the military nowadays, and you just don't know what you don't know. So always ask, are you or your spouse a veteran? You also want to find out about surviving spouse. So find out if that person, maybe they're a widowed veteran. So maybe they were married to someone who was killed in action. Because in those type of situations, then that widow or widower could get surviving spouse benefits. And the other thing to remember is it doesn't have to be on the battlefield. So for example, right now there's a lot of Agent Orange claims from Vietnam, but now, 50 plus years later, there are claims coming through, people dying from that, and those people can get surviving spouse benefits as well. One thing to keep in mind, though, with the surviving spouse is if they're a widow, but it was not directly related to the military service, they're just widowed and they just had a heart attack or something that was not connected to service, that does not count for VA. The other thing to ask is, are you entitled to disability from the VA? And the reason I ask it like this is some people have pending claims. And when we go through the funding fee in a little bit, that's where that really comes into play. So that's very important to know about any sort of disability entitlement. Next question is, do you have your certificate of eligibility yet? So that's something we're going to get on our side as lenders, something you can start preparing the veteran to get. But they do need to have a DD 214 that can provide to us. If they're active duty and they need a statement of service, we can certainly help them with that part of it. For most people, especially if we're in the military recently, and we can just go online with a social security number and pull it. There's a website called WebLGY that we can use that makes it super, super easy to work with that. So now I'm going to go through the certificate of eligibility, and let me share my screen on this one, possibly. So let's see if we can go into slideshow mode. So here is the certificate of eligibility. It is the golden ticket to getting a VA loan. Without a certificate of eligibility, there is not going to be any sort of VA loan. No ifs, ands, or buts, no exceptions. So the first thing you need to know is the name of the veteran, social security number, and in most situations, well, this is a sample one. So those are blank on this form, but normally where it's his name and social security number, that would actually be on the form. But this is, for an example, we're leaving that blank. And so entitlement code is 10. And the entitlement codes are based on the time that they were in the military, which war they were under. So this is under the Gulf War, which is anything 1990 to present would be entitlement code 10. Branch of service, they're in the Marine Corps. Funding fee exempt, which means they pay no funding fee, which we'll go through that in a bit. And so you can see prior loans charged entitlement. There's a VA loan number there. Normally, which should be a state, but it's just a sample, doesn't show the state. Shows the date of September 2013. Entitlement charge $36,000. Status active. So it says the basic entitlement is 0. Now we're going to go through what this means in a bit. You've got two levels of entitlement. This means there's a basic entitlement and there's what's called bonus entitlement. So this does not mean they can't get a VA loan. This means the basic entitlement's been used up, and that's fine. And we'll go through that formula a bit later and exactly how all that works. The other thing you notice is at the very bottom it says funding fee. The veteran's exempt from the funding fee due to a service-connected disability, which we're figured out. And it shows they were receiving $1,019 in compensation. So this form can also act as proof of income because it shows exactly what they get. We don't need any other sort of statements to prove the income for that disability payment. We will need to see a bank statement to see where it goes, that type of thing. But that's pretty much it for that certificate of eligibility. Next, I want to talk about funding fees. These were updated for 2020. So it varies based on the type of loan and what you're doing. So and this is our current 2020 chart for the funding fee. So they have different levels based on whether your first time use or subsequent use. So first time use, it's 2.3%, and then with no down payment. But as you can see with subsequent use, it goes to 3.6. But as you can see, when the veteran puts a down payment, it actually is the same, 1.65 or 1.4 for 10% or greater. Cash out refis, there is no difference in how much you're taking out. The funding fee is the same either way. ERLs, which is the streamlined refinance, or basically they're just taking the money and getting a lower rate without taking any money out, 0.5%. Loan assumption is also 0.5%. VA loans are assumable. It's recommended that if it is being assumed that it goes to another veteran, but it's not required. But it will tie up the entitlement for that veteran that's passing off that loan to be assumed to a civilian. So it's recommended that if an assumption is done, that it goes to another veteran. And just FYI. So that's this section, and stay tuned for the next piece.